You said something. It wasn't even that important. Maybe a joke that landed slightly off. Maybe a sentence that came out differently than you planned. And now, hours later, you're still in that room, still in that moment, replaying it, rewinding it, looking for the thing that made you sound wrong. The conversation ended, but inside your head, it's still happening. And the strangest part? You're not sure anything even went wrong. This isn't just overthinking. This is something more specific. And most people don't have a name for it. You walk away from a social situation, and something shifts. Not dramatically, quietly. A small, uncomfortable scan starts in the back of your mind. Did I talk too much? Was I too quiet? Did they notice when I laughed at the wrong moment? And even when you find no real evidence, no one walked away angry. No one looked at you strange. The loop continues anyway, because this isn't about what actually happened. It's about something underneath. This pattern touches everything. It shapes how you decide whether to speak or stay quiet. It changes whether you text someone back quickly or wait, anxious, wondering how your last message sounded. It makes you rehearse conversations before they happen and audit them after they're done. It tells you that other people's silences mean something about you. And over time, quietly, it begins to reshape how you see yourself in rooms full of people. Not obviously, not all at once, but slowly you start editing yourself before you've even spoken. Here is what psychology actually shows us. This isn't a personality flaw. It's not anxiety in the clinical sense, not always. And it is not evidence that you are socially broken. It is evidence that your brain learned something at some point that it has been protecting you with ever since. The brain doesn't create patterns randomly. It creates them in response to environments. If attention ever felt unsafe, if being seen meant being judged, if love felt conditional on how well you performed in a room, then your brain built a system to monitor that constantly. That system isn't a malfunction. It was the most intelligent response available to a situation that felt unpredictable. The problem isn't that the system exists. The problem is that it's still running in situations where the original threat is no longer present. Let's look at what's actually happening in the brain. There is a concept in psychology called identity contingency. It describes what happens when your sense of self-worth becomes tied to external feedback, specifically how others perceive you. When identity is contingent on social approval, neutral moments stop being neutral. A pause in conversation becomes potential rejection. A short reply becomes possible disapproval. A missed laugh becomes evidence of failure. The brain, specifically the part responsible for self-referential thinking, begins processing every social cue through a threat detection lens. Think of it like this. Imagine your brain has two departments. One department is the archivist. It stores memories of moments when you felt accepted, safe, understood. The other department is the security guard. Its job is to look for anything that resembles past threats. Judgment, embarrassment, exclusion. In most people, these departments work in balance. But when identity insecurity is present, the security guard starts pulling double shifts. It reviews every social interaction not for what happened, but for what could have gone wrong. And here is the critical part. The brain cannot distinguish clearly between a real social threat and an imagined one. The same neural circuits activate. The same emotional residue stays in the body. So the replay loop you experience after a conversation is not irrational. It is the security guard doing its job, just doing it in a world that no longer requires that level of surveillance. So what do you actually do with this? Not to eliminate the sensitivity, because sensitivity, when understood, becomes a resource, but to stop letting the loop run your sense of self. Here are 4 principles grounded in how the brain actually changes. The first one is this: name the loop, not the content. When the replay starts, don't engage with the details of the conversation. Instead, say quietly to yourself, the security guard is running a review. Why does this work? Naming a mental process activates the rational, observing part of the brain, which creates small but real distance from the emotional reaction. It doesn't stop the loop, but stops you from being the loop. For example, you're lying in bed replaying a meeting. Instead of re-examining what you said, You simply notice, my brain is doing the review again. That single step interrupts the pattern. The second principle, audit the evidence, not the emotion. Ask yourself one specific question. What observable evidence exists that something went wrong? Not feelings, not interpretations, observable facts. This works because deliberately engaging the analytical brain counterbalances the threat detection system. One real example. You texted a friend. They replied with 2 words. The feeling says, they're pulling away. The evidence says, they replied, they're probably just busy. Separate those 2 things. Every time. The third principle, distinguish performance from presence. Much of post-social overthinking comes from having been performing during the interaction, rather than present in it. When we perform, managing how we appear, we generate more data to review afterward, because we were watching ourselves the entire time. The antidote is not confidence. It's deliberate sensory presence during the interaction itself. Focus on the other person's words, not your own output. Let their reality, not your self-image, occupy your attention. Try this in your next conversation. Choose one moment to fully listen, not to prepare your next sentence, just to actually hear what the person is saying. Notice how the internal noise quiets. The fourth principle is the deepest one. Separate your self-worth from social outcomes. Identity contingency loosens. When you build what psychologists call non-contingent self-worth, this means deliberately anchoring your sense of self in things that cannot be changed by a single conversation. Your values, how you treat people, what you're curious about. These do not fluctuate based on whether a joke landed. After your next social event, instead of reviewing the interaction, write one sentence about a value you lived during it. I listened when they needed to talk. I showed up even when I felt uncertain. This trains the brain to locate identity internally, rather than scanning for it externally. Here is the mental model to carry with you. You have a security guard in your mind who learned their job in an earlier version of your life. They are not wrong to do their job. They're just working from an old threat map, one drawn in moments when belonging felt conditional. The work is not to fire the guard. The work is to slowly update the map, to show the brain, through repeated experience, that neutral moments are neutral, that presence is safer than performance, that your worth does not live in the pause between your words and someone else's response. This doesn't happen in one conversation. It doesn't happen because you decided to think differently. It happens in small moments, accumulated quietly. Over time, the reason you replay those conversations isn't weakness. It's a mind that cares deeply about connection, about being understood, about matching to the people around you. That's not something to fix. That's something to work with. Because a mind that notices this much, that feels this carefully, that pays this much attention, has everything it needs to eventually quiet itself. Not by caring less, but by learning slowly. That was never as close to the edge as it thought. You were never as strange as the replay made you sound.